Right, it's a Wednesday afternoon. It's just coming up to 5 o'clock, and Celtic have just made their return. Season 21-22 is underway. The Ange Postecoglou Celtic reign has begun, and it's begun with a victory 3-1. I was about to say at home. I don't know why I was about to say that. In Wales, it's kind of our home at the moment. It's Sheffield Wednesday's home as well, but that's who we beat by 3-1. We had to come from behind as well. But we did just that to win, and we're going to chat about it on 67 Hail Hail. I'm Hamish, of course. David, welcome back, David. It's been a while, mate. How you been getting on recently?
Aye, not too bad. It's been a while, isn't it? I can't remember my last one. What was the last one?
It was probably after getting scudded off some
We had a
European mob.
we had a few downers last season, but here's hoping it's a lot different this year.
It didn't start much different or much better though, because a former Rangers player scored.
I mean, I must admit, first 10 minutes, I was the first kind of raising an eyebrow, thinking, "Oh no, I think we need the experienced guys back." You know, just typically overdoing it, like we do as Celtic fans from time to time. But after that sort of initial 15, maybe 20 minutes, I thought they played really well. I was really surprised at how composed and how sharp they looked on the ball. They were really, really desperate to play out from the back, really desperate. I think there was only a couple of long balls in total from Celtic throughout the opening 60 minutes in particular, from that first 11 that he played, who I thought were terrific. I really did. I thought they were great. I thought they really looked like a well sort of drilled unit for a first pre-season game. Obviously, you know, some will say there's no pressure, it's pre-season. A lot of pressure on a lot of those youngsters to perform for what will be maybe one of their only chances to impress the manager in a game this year. So I wouldn't say there was no pressure for them. I thought they handled the match really well. Thought they were the better side against a really experienced Sheffield Wednesday team. You know, it was a lot of their best players playing today. So it was a really, really good result when you take that into account. Obviously, it's first pre-season game, so you don't go over the top, but I expected a much lesser standard from Celtic today, Hamish. I thought they were really good.
I think it's a good point you make, that a really, really good point you make about the spotlight already been on those young players. Even though it's our first game of pre-season, this is probably one of the only opportunities certain members of that Celtic squad will get to show the manager what they can do. We could go through several players. We obviously will do on this video. Owen Moffat's a perfect example. Ewan Henderson. Obviously, there's then a kind of tier above that, I think it's fair to say, with the likes of Leo Connor and Luca Connell, players that we probably, hopefully, will see a bit more of this season, although there are no guarantees at all. And I think you're right, you've got to make an early impression when you consider we've still got our 5-strong Scotland contingent to come back in, still got Christopher Ayer to come back in, we've still got Urhoghide, and probably, hopefully, if Celtic want to get their act together, a number of new signings coming in as well. So the pressure was on to a certain extent for these guys, and I thought they did quite well. I thought we did start quite sloppily, if that's even a word. We didn't really move the ball around too well. You could see we were still trying to do it, but it was almost like the idea was there and the execution wasn't. But I think you're right. I think it was about the 15-minute mark. Something just seemed to change, and we were moving the ball about really well. Triangles, David. When have you ever seen a Celtic team in the last year playing triangles? I mean, I'd forgotten that was even a shape.
I must admit, though, I actually thought Ewan Henderson played a really good role in helping Celtic get a foothold in the game, because I thought he was one of the first players that actually started ball carrying a bit. You know, he was one of the ones that started.
He's a good player.
He's a good player. He's always been a good player. I'd like to see more of him this season. I think some will have their doubts over him, you know, going away on loan and, you know, maybe not being a standout. But I would like to see what he could do under the new manager. And I think a lot of these players, it's not like last season when you're playing under a manager who's not going to give you much of a chance anyway, regardless of how well you perform. Postecoglou has this track record that should make the youngsters quite excited. So it was a big game for them today. I'm not going to go through every one and say, oh, they all had storming performances. That wasn't the case. But there was certainly a lot of them looked pretty well drilled, I thought, in that squad today. And even the second 11 that came in, I was really impressed, in particular with Gelder, if that's how you say his name. I'm not sure. Not just because he was big, but I thought he made some really good interventions. Maybe the first 10, 15 minutes of that final 30, when Sheffield were sort of trying to come right into the game and try and create some opportunities. I thought his positioning and his timing of tackles was really good. Didn't have a massive amount to do after that, but I was impressed with the little he had to do, again, under a certain element of pressure. So it's good. It's one game ticked off, and we move on to the next one. Hopefully we can see some of these guys who performed well today back in the team again. But you're right, Ange Postecoglou will want to get the experienced guys some game time before Midfield.
I must admit I had to kind of snap out of the funk I was in on several occasions during the game, because I had the embers of last season still in my mind, and anytime a Yeti wasn't quite closing down a player, I thought Yeti did quite well today. Obviously took his goal well. I think he does look slimmer. I don't think people are just imagining that. I think he genuinely does. There was still points in the game where I thought you could maybe close down a bit better there, and I had to kind of snap out of that and remind myself it's pre-season game one. Get rid of last season. I think it's going to be a difficult thing for the Celtic support to do, because last season, and I'm not going to go on about it, I promise, but it was such a monumental failure, and we're going to still have a lot of players from that failure here this coming season, and I think the Celtic fans are going to almost have to give a lot of these players a clean slate, because what else can we do? I don't feel like we can continue to deride the likes of Yeti and Barkas, who both did quite well today. Barkas even made a save today, which is a bonus, but I thought it was a good workout. As I say, Yeti took his goal well. Yeti being captain, do we read much into that? I mean, a lot of people saying that it shows the trust that Postecoglou perhaps has in him, and it shows the work that Yeti's been putting in his early pre-season.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been a sign of a good faith from the manager. I do think, just try to think of the first starting 11, he might have been the most experienced of them anyway. When you think of that 11, I'm just trying to rack my brains.
Barkas would be the only other one, I think.
Yeah, you could say Barkas as well, but Ajeti was right up there for experience, so it could have been that. Maybe Postecoglou didn't want to give it to a younger player, let the idea of being Celtic captain for any occasion go to their head.
Welsh was maybe an obvious one. I mean, we're going over daft wee tiny things, but Welsh would maybe be the most obvious one. I did think it was interesting, Yeti given the captaincy, but you're right, of senior players in that team. The team that started the game was Barkas, Ralston, Welsh, Murray, Montgomery, Sorrell, Shaw, McInroy, Moffat, Henderson and Yeti. So you've got 9 players there from the academy, pretty much, or 8.
So if you'd have asked people to start the game, who do you think will be captain out of that team? Ajay could have been one of the names that came up easily when you look at the experience. So I don't think he's not going to get it when we go out against Midfield. But
well, I hope not. It's probably one of these things that two Celtic fans chatting on YouTube turn into a massive issue, when in reality what's really probably happened is Postecoglou's gone like 2 minutes before kick-off. Oh God, right, here's my team. Who will I give captain? Hey, Albion, here you go. It's probably something as small as that.
And you give a struggling player a wee boost. You give him the armband and see what he can do. And I thought Ajay played well. I thought he looked up for it. I thought the first 20-25 minutes didn't have anything to work with at all. I actually felt a bit for him, because I thought if the game continues like this, Ajay's going to get called out for next to no reason. So I was really pleased he came into the game more and got his goal. Just seeing there Ryan McGinley could easily have given the armband to Welsh. He could have done. He could have done, but I mean, it doesn't matter. We probably know who the captain's going to be moving forward anyway, and it won't be anyone that was on the pitch today.
Right, we're not going to run through every player that played, because I've got stuff I want to do.
All right. On you go then.
The comments are flooding in for Liam Shaw. I'll just pick out one of them. Curtis D. Shaw was impressive. Not exactly an extensive comment there, but I think we could all agree with that from Curtis. I think Shaw looked good. A bit kind of taken back by how big he is, and how strong he is as well. I know that the interview I did last week, Alex Miller from the Sheffield Star described him as a strapping big lad, but I didn't quite have it in my mind that he would look like that. But he seems like quite a good player as well, good with his feet. And I thought he put in a good shift today for a pre-season game, probably because of the fact he was up against his ex-team, maybe wanted to prove a point.
Yeah, I mean, it looks similar in stature and near Beaton. I thought at times I had to double check twice and make sure it wasn't Beaton. Shaw looked really, really good, really composed on the ball today. Was quite impressed. What you're looking for when you sign a player like that for one of these a younger type project from lower league in England, you want to make sure they're good technically. And I thought he did. He looked the part today technically. Now you're right, he probably did have this extra layer of motivation against Sheffield Wednesday, but I don't think that would have been his overriding sort of emotion. He would have been looking at this his first game for Celtic. Needs to impress the manager. I think whoever he was playing today in pre-season, he would have impressed, because he looks as if he has the ability to be quite an asset. I'd like to see him more in pre-season. I hope it's not going to be one of these project signings that gets a couple of games in pre-season, maybe a few cameos at the start of next season, and boom, that's him away back out the team. I'd like to see a bit more of these players that we're signing, and see if they can make an impact over a sustained period of time. And that, I think, with his performance today, he earns automatically another shot.
I'm really intrigued by the signings of Shaw and Urhoghide, because I've kind of had it in my head that they're going to be players who can go into the first team and make an impact. But
I think so.
Because they've had the experience at Sheffield Wednesday last season. But then you do look at other players we've signed in recent years, the likes of Luca Connell, who had first team experience at Bolton Wanderers in the Championship, and then hasn't played a competitive game for Celtic yet. So there's no guarantees. These guys are going to have to impress Postecoglou to get their chance. A player who's kind of in the same bracket as the aforementioned Luca Connell is Leo Connor. He didn't play for long. I think he was part of the second team that came on for the final third of this three-third match, a game of three-thirds. And a few people are asking about him. I thought Leo Connor looked quite good. He's certainly, I don't think he's quick, really. I don't think he's particularly strong either. He strikes me as a guy who just reads the game really well, and without patronising him or whatever, he seems like a consummate professional. He seems like he'll give his all, and as I say, he'll read the game, and he's got a good engine on him as well. So I thought he did quite well. A couple of good interceptions. I think he had a shot as well near the end of the game that was close. So positives for him. I'm really quite like him. He's another strange one. He's already been capped by the Republic of Ireland. He came through Man United's youth academy. He played 42 games for Tranmere. Alright, it's only Tranmere, but English League 2 last season as they went close to promotion. So he's a guy who should be able to make some sort of an impact at Celtic, especially when we're not blessed for right backs. I mean, if you compare him to someone like Anthony Ralston, for me, O'Connor has to be ahead. Well,
exactly. I mean, I think we all know where Ralston's long-term future lies, even though he did get that extension. It's not here. So I'd be surprised if Postecoglou was to go with him going forward. I think that was one of those typical sort of pre-season selection decisions when you see players who probably won't make it, get some game time. Thought Ralston fell into that bracket today. O'Connor, I just haven't seen enough of him, Hamish, even when he was playing with Tranmere, I didn't really catch him too much, so I can't say whether he should be starting for Celtic. It would be interesting to know where the manager sees Urhoghide playing. Is he going to be one for the right back position? Is he going to be a potential centre back? He can play both. Obviously, with Sheffield, he's been mainly operating as a centre back, so it would be surprising if he was a right back contender. But outside of him, you've got Ralston and you've got O'Connor, and I think that's maybe it just now, isn't it? I'm not missing one, so no. I think we're still going to strengthen that position anyway. I'd be surprised if we went into Michelin with Ralston or O'Connor, and I'd maybe be surprised if Urhoghide played in it as well. I'd still like to think we're looking in that area, Hamish, because I'm far from convinced from what's there at the moment.
We talk Leo Connor and that up, but let's not beat around the bush. If we're going into this season with with Ralston, O'Connor and Urhoghide, who we're not even convinced is a right back as our three options, then God, wave goodbye to any hopes. We have to sign a right back. It has to happen.
But do you think Celtic will? I mean, I would say we need urgently for Midtjylland a right back and probably two centre backs. That's my view. If we're serious, because I don't know. I suppose it depends if Ayer's going to stay. But for me, I would try to bring two in and a right back. Probably overly optimistic. Probably won't do that. Bare minimum, I'd like a centre back and a right back in. I think that's absolutely essential. So hopefully we can get two deals like that done over the course of the next, what are we on, the next 8 days for the registration deadline. It's going to be a big job for them.
I think that's the most likely, to be honest. But you look all over the pitch, and ideally we could do another centre mid, because who's partnering Callum McGregor in that game against Midtjylland? If we're honest, I mean, people will say Ismail Assoro, and I thought Ismail Assoro, had good patches today. I thought he looked sloppy at times as well. But just overall, I'm still not totally convinced that Ismail Assoro's ready to be a centre midfielder that plays, that starts European games and big games in Scotland for Celtic. I still think we need another option.
I think Soro's good enough for Midtjylland. I think he's good enough to play against Midtjylland. I don't think that's an essential area to strengthen for. I think there's bigger priorities in the centre midfield for that particular tie. Obviously, if you can knock out Midtjylland, you've got another week or two of a deadline. So, I'd be all right if I saw Soro on the team sheet to play Midtjylland. I'd be quite happy. I know what you mean. I mean, he can be a bit sporadic with his positioning for me. Sometimes forgets where he's supposed to be playing, but we know he's capable. We know he's capable of performing.
Listen, he played against Lille, the champions of France, in December, and was the best player in the park.
He was the best player at Ibrox for me in January as well. So, I mean, you look back at our videos back then, we were singing his praises about how good a player he is. So, for me, I'd have no bother with Soro going in there. I actually don't think he'll even strengthen the centre midfield at all this summer. I don't think he will. I think there's too much needing done elsewhere. You need to get another right winger in for a start. Maybe even another left winger too. Preferably another centre forward. I can't see it. I can't see it being a big priority.
Right, Owen Moffat, pretty good, brilliant goal. I don't know much about this guy. I thought he was really good, real good energy, good bits of skill, can really beat a man, bit of pace about him, and hopefully we see a good bit more of him. Not convinced we will, to be honest, just because he seems quite far down the pecking order. Don't know exactly what age he is, but I'd assume he's not any older than 18. So. Maybe he's one for a couple of seasons down the line, but certainly there's a player there for me.
I think his goal this season's probably impressing the B team. I thought he looked really sharp. You're looking when you start these pre-season games. There's a lot of youngsters that you've maybe not seen at all. What you're looking for is the ones that can excite you. Who's going to be the player that's going to perhaps cut open the opposition today and make it an enjoyable experience watching the game? I thought Owen Moffat was.
He's 19. Maybe people are telling me.
Right, maybe Owen Moffat was the player who did that today. I thought it was very direct. I love direct wingers, Hamish. Every time he got the ball, he was taking on his man, whether it was the outside or cutting inside as well. He showed an ability to do both, which was pleasing to see. Not going to pretend he had the best game ever. Everything he'd done was superb. But he showed real promise as well. He's not the only one. And his goal was sublime. That's the kind of thing that catches the eye of supporters. Utterly stunning finish, the way he took it. With the ball going away from him, bang into the far corner. Fantastic. So we'll see if we can see a bit more of Moffat. But when the games start this season, even though he was playing at right wing today, and that's a position we're struggling in really with especially for us as an injury, I wouldn't expect to see much of him. I'd like to see a bit more in pre-season, but I think his next goal is going to be try to build up some muscle, try to build up his game in the Lowland League this season. And I think that's the best thing for him as well.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think that Moffat is definitely one for the future, but there's clearly a player there. Right, so if we kind of look at the players that played today, count out the experienced ones, the ones we know about, is there one player there you think is going to be a Celtic first teamer this coming season, or at least can make some sort of an impact?
What, out of the experienced players?
Out of the young players, is there someone who can step up and, play
Out
maybe
young
20,
players?
25, 30 games, maybe score a few goals? For me, I've said this before, I can't get over why Ewan Henderson hasn't made his Celtic breakthrough yet. Now, I know he's in a part of the pitch where historically we've had top players, Ryan Christie when he was good, David Turnbull, brilliant player, Tom Rogic, a few years ago. But people forget that Ewan Henderson was given an opportunity by Brendan Rodgers, several games just before Brendan Rodgers left the club.
He was really good, yeah.
Now, we talk about Brendan Rodgers leaving Celtic and how it's affected the club, but, just to Ewan Henderson, that was a real bad blow for him because he just got into the team. He'd just been given opportunities by Brendan Rodgers. I remember, I think Rodgers' last game was at home to Motherwell. Ewan Henderson, I think, started that game and he was really, really good. And he's not really kicked on from that at all. He's probably not been given the opportunities to kick on by the previous manager. But every time I see Ewan Henderson play, I just think the guy is a really, really good player. Great right foot, real cultured right foot. And he gets into really good areas. You know what they say about a good player? You can tell a good player because they always look like they have time. And for me, Ewan Henderson is a player who always looks like he has an extra half second to everyone else on the pitch. So I think he could be the player to really stand up for Ange this season if he's given the opportunity.
He's probably one of the most senior of the youth players that were playing today, if that makes sense. Henderson falls into the same boat as Luke O'Connell for me. I think their development paths have been atrocious. No fault of their own for me. I think it's the club's handling of it. Look at Connell last season. He went on loan to Queen's Park around 2 years after he was playing regular football in the English Championship. That's an incredible come down. It really is. And you're talking about Henderson there, where he was under Brendan Rodgers. He was the next big thing. It really was. I remember some of the comments Rodgers was saying about him. Neil Lennon came in. A game came up against Rangers they just did not want to throw Henderson into. Yeah. And then just seemed to forget about him completely after that. So I've always been a fan of Henderson's talent. I've always been a bit sceptical of whether he could produce over the course of a full season, especially when he's had game time, at other clubs recently, and maybe stats come the end of the season aren't that great. I'm thinking of Dunfermline loan spell in particular last season. So whether he would be an effective contributor for 30-odd games over the course of a season, I'm not sure. But he definitely deserves a bit more of a chance, I think. Especially when you're talking about a Celtic attack last season that was powder puff a lot of the time. Sorry, there you go.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, because it's all well and good saying he deserves a chance, and I'm not calling you out. I'm saying I totally agree. I think he deserves a chance, but the cynic might ask, when do those chances come? Because every single game Celtic play, it's fine playing a pre-season friendly in Wales against Sheffield Wednesday and, playing 8 youngsters and putting 8 more on after 60 minutes. But when our season starts proper and it's, every single league game you must start, and European games, and even the cups, lose a cup game and it's a crisis at Celtic, especially when Postecoglou's just come into the club. When do these chances come for these young players? I don't know how Celtic get round this.
For me, it's never really been rocket science. We have games throughout the season against Scottish Premiership opposition, bottom half Scottish Premiership opposition, that are perfect for the likes of Ewan Henderson to start. I'm not saying Ewan Henderson starts in the same team as, Dane Murray, Ewan Otto, Leo Cott. He starts with experienced heads. 1 or 2. Now, these 1 or 2 guys aren't going to come into the team and suddenly make Celtic a really poor side. They're good footballers. So that's the time to see whether they can impress. There's so many games throughout the season that we look at in terms of squad rotation and think, who can we bring in? And, these games are perfect for the likes of Henderson, for the likes of Connell. Again, not at the same time, but a gradual integration of maybe 2 or 3 of the best players. When we're saying Celtic played well today against Sheffield Wednesday, we're not saying every one of these players that played today should be getting first team games from the start of the season. That's not the point. But there are players who are there that are ready for a step up that haven't been tested. Henderson falls into that bracket. Luke O'Connell falls into that bracket. Perhaps Leo Connor falls into that bracket as well. There are others I'm not too sure about, like Jonathan Afolabi, personally. But, there's a good core of players there that could do with a lot more game time than they get. We can't be sitting here in 12 months talking about whether Leo Connor's had a good game in pre-season again. You need to see whether these guys are good enough, and there's times to do that throughout the season.
But there's so many other players, even ones we haven't spoke about today. I mean, I know this guy's a tier or two above the ones we're chatting about, but Mikey Johnson, like, what's even happening with him? What about Lee Griffiths, who didn't feature today? There's just so many more Celtic players to come into this squad, and obviously we're hopefully going to sign players as well. I think that's us for our first match reaction of the season. It was a 3-1 win at home to Sheffield Wednesday. We are going to try and do as many of these post-match live reactions to as many of the pre-season friendlies as possible. Why? Because we've got nothing else to do. We're sitting here on a Wednesday afternoon, and I'm a bit bored, so we'll chat to you. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. David, thanks very much for giving your thoughts. You'll be writing over on 67hailhail.com today and tomorrow as well. Obviously other guys writing on there as well. We've got a new website as well, a new look website, so go and check that out right after this video finishes. Check out 67hailhail.com. You will not be disappointed, I promise. It is an absolute cracker. Remember to subscribe to the channel as well. That would really be appreciated, and we'll speak to you soon. Take care, and hail.